taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello everybody, happy Saturday and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry for February 8th, 2020, the Saturday edition of the show. My name is Ash, I'm here as always with Cybsidian, and we have some special guests with us today. It should be a great show. We've got some awesome YouTubers, content creators joining us today. We have Upper Echelon Gamers, aka UEG, aka Chris. Who wasn't sure how he wanted us to refer to him, but anyway, welcome, Chris, Upper Echelon Gamers. Not sure which we'll call you throughout the podcast today, but welcome to the show. We're really glad you could join us.
Thanks, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you had covered a couple of days ago, was it just yesterday? You posted a video about the article we discussed on the last podcast. The Cyberpunk 2077 supposed interview with John Mames, that we're very skeptical of and may not even have happened. We'll discuss that a little bit today, or probably a lot today. But also, in general, you have been covering the failures of gaming news media. That's been a common theme on your channel. You've really been digging into that, and we definitely appreciate that because we don't like this. We don't like the direction that games news media has been going in either. But yeah, that's something that you're constantly seem to be on top of. That seems to be a passion of yours. Would that be an accurate statement? That's just something you care a great deal about. Oh, did we lose Chris? Okay. Not sure what's happening there. Sorry about that. But we also have LastKnownMeal with us. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I think this is the first time that I'm actually on your podcast as a guest.
Well, that's a shame. I mean, you're definitely welcome anytime. We appreciate all of you in the Cyberpunk 2077 community that we do the community podcast with. Yeah, we don't.
Thank you.
We don't want to overburden you with guest appearances, but definitely anytime you want to join us, you're welcome to.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, actually. Amazing topics for today.
Yeah, and now the Neon Arcade was supposed to be with us, but he's feeling ill today, so there's a chance he might join us later. But
UE is back.
UE is back. Okay, so we lost you momentarily there, but yeah, welcome back. So I was just asking, just before you disappeared there, it's been a common theme on your channel of you going...
I don't know if his microphone is back right now.
I'm sorry?
Though. I said I don't know if his microphone is back right now. So
okay, he's muted. So, all right, well...
yeah.
Let me know when he's when that situation has sort of sorted itself out. But we do have a lot of interesting news to discuss today in addition to that. Saib, you were quite taken with this. What's on the thumbnail art today? There was an enterprising modder out there who, instead of getting frustrated with the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed, they recreated it in Fallout using mods and a rather ingenious series of mods. It looks really great. I mean, it's not too much in depth to discuss there, but it's pretty cool. It's something you can check out if you're interested in. If you need more Cyberpunk in your life, and who doesn't need more Cyberpunk in their life, you can recreate Cyberpunk in Fallout 4. There's a video on YouTube sort of detailing some of the mods that went into it, because there's quite a few. And it looks pretty great. Like, it really, really does add a Cyberpunk vibe to Fallout. So, I mean,
it's ridiculous how much it looks like Cyberpunk. And how cyberpunkish it does look. Like, it's just like, and just to be clear, this is many mods all working together. This is not just this isn't just one like cut and paste one. This is a massive number of mods all coming together to give this kind of look. And again, it's like this is really awesome because it's substantial. So
yeah,
I was impressed. And I was like super impressed. It's something that I'm like, Man, I'm gonna have to go back and like mod Fallout 4 all over again.
Yeah, if I had time to play through Fallout 4 again, I would definitely be doing that.
It was just a matter of time, honestly, until someone actually made it in
I have to,
Fallout.
exactly. I have to wonder if this actually happened all in response to Cyberpunk 2077 getting delayed, or if it was something he was working on beforehand and then just kind of took the opportunity with the Cyberpunk 2077 delay to kind of promote it. But because it looks
I'm
like a
back, by
ton
the
of
way.
work went into this.
Sorry
Chris,
about that.
oh, awesome, good, welcome
Yeah.
back. So yeah, we had some technical difficulties with you, but you're back. So yeah, we'll get back to the questions I was asking you in just a sec. But yeah, so if those of you in the audience, if you're interested in this modding procedure, check out the Eurogamer article. Cyberpunk 2077 got delayed, so I made it in Fallout 4 instead. Now, Emma Kent is the author of that article, but I don't know if she's the one who actually did the modding. I'm not 100% sure, or if it was, if she. Yeah, I'm not.
I think she just kind of threw it together. So
She might have compiled the info. I'm not 100% sure of that. But from that article, you'll find a basic description of how to do it. You will find links to lists of the mods you need, that kind of a thing. You'll find the links to the YouTube video that sort of demos it. And yeah, it does look really awesome. I mean, it's still Fallout, obviously. It's not like there's story content added, but it is.
It's also still an old game, so you know, it's like as much as you can wonderfully mod Skyrim and Fallout to be 4K and all that kind of stuff. It still has its like limitations as far as like what's new and stuff. But the skin work, the city work that they've added, the filters, the ENBs that they're using for this kind of stuff, it's all like works like really marvelously. And it's something that I'm seriously considering like booting Fallout 4 back up again, just kind of like go through this stuff as entirely as a new Cyberpunk thing. So it's awesome.
They did add, like, Fallout 4 has a massive library of mods at this point, and so this individual compiled like a ton of different things, including one called Bullet Time, which mimics the slowdown effect that you will get from the inhaler in Cyberpunk 2077. So yeah, definitely something to check out.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
anyway, getting back to yeah, we have some other news that we're going to get to. There's been some shakeups at Blizzard. There's a shakeup with Rockstar this week. We had a question on our Discord server about System Shock 3 and whether, if that studio/game is in trouble, and a couple other things. But I want to get back to talking to Upper Echelon Gamers, aka Chris, UEG. So welcome back. We did have technical difficulties with you, but sounds like you're back with us now. So as I was saying earlier, it sounds like this digging into the misfeasance, or in some cases malfeasance, of gaming news media seems to be something that you're interested in, and it's something that seems to be a recurring theme on your channel, wanting to hold these media outlets to account. Would it be accurate to say that's something you're passionate about? And is there anything else you'd like to say about, what drives you to make these videos, kind of taking on sort of the establishment gaming media as you do?
Well, it's kind of low-hanging fruit, which, I mean, they make it really easy. And then for two, I always look at the amount of resources. A lot of like you guys here, myself, a lot of other YouTube channels, we have less people, less resources, less of everything at our disposal. And yet we spend more time. And oftentimes, I mean, I still get stuff wrong. Don't get me wrong, it happens. But more times we put more passion into really like fact checking or making sure that we dig up every piece of relevant info. Whereas a lot of the news media now, it's like copy paste, it's get it out quickly, correct it in post, which is a really bad mindset, I think, for early reporting. And they don't really care if what they're saying is true or accurate or helpful to the game or any of those things. So it just over time it built up to a point where now every time I see one of these articles, I just get annoyed by it to where I want to yell at online.
Absolutely. And I would agree with you on that. It is frustrating to see, especially transparently obvious cases like this recent interview from onmsft.com, which is apparently supposed to be pronounced onmicrosoft.com. That's according to the website itself. But this is, as you pointed out, in your recent video, you pointed out this is a very small site. You hadn't encountered it prior to this interview being posted. We hadn't encountered it prior to this interview being posted, but this interview entitled CD Projekt Red's John Mames talks about Cyberpunk 2077's creation, VR, DLC, Nintendo Switch, and more. That's the title of the article. And especially this point about there being around 75 street stories. That's been picked up by tons and tons of news outlets, like major news outlets, and it's getting repeated and propagated out there when there's good reason to be suspect of this article. Immediately, I was suspect because, there's no indication of where he spoke to John Mames or when. It was just, I recently sat down with CD Projekt Red's John Mames, and we talked about all this stuff. And
Wait, did he actually say I recently sat down? Because I never actually saw that part. It seemed to me like he cleverly tried to disguise it as if he had done it, but he never outright claimed that he had, because obviously he hasn't.
The first paragraph of the article. I recently sat down with CD Projekt Red's John Mames to talk about.
So he flat out lied then, yeah.
It's starting to look that way. As you pointed out, CD Projekt Red is not releasing numbers of quests and things like that. That's something that we hadn't even caught. But you pointed out they're not releasing exact numbers and things like that because they don't want to have they want to control expectations, I guess. But we had also heard directly from Lalaya, the community manager for CD Projekt Red for Cyberpunk, as well as a couple others within the company. Apparently, John Mames doesn't remember giving this interview. And now I reached out to the author, Brad Stevenson, on Twitter and asked, could you please tell us where and when you interviewed John Mames? And he claims it happened at PAX Australia in Melbourne last year, which is really odd because that creates some anachronisms in the article. Because they talk.
There's info in the article that didn't exist at that time. So he interviewed him at PAX Australia and then waited an entire year and found out more information before even publishing the interview a year later. Because how did he even know that his info was going to be relevant or that it wasn't all going to be covered 10 times more in that year? That doesn't make sense. I don't believe that.
Well, it's like just some of the subjects that they cover is like, did the dude have a genie bottle at the time, or like some crystal ball, or how did he see ahead to some of these things? And so that's where right from the get-go, CDPR staff was like, wait, we don't have a record of this. And as I said on I can't remember if it was Wednesday or the Sunday podcast, but it's when you're going to these big conventions, a big studio, big AAA studio that really cares about what information is getting out, they're actually tracking who is talking to whom and what questions they're asking. And in a lot of cases, they're actually also recording it because they don't want to have somebody report something that's inaccurate and not have a way of refuting it right from the get-go. And this is one of these things where it's like, do we have a record of him talking to this person? And they're like, okay, nope. Don't see anything. There is absolutely nothing here at all. And suddenly it's like, well, okay, well, that's suspect right from the get-go. So right from the get-go, they were like, yeah, don't believe anything that's written in here. This seems really suspect, and nobody remembers having this interview with this guy. But that's the other thing is you can post tons of stuff from like years ago, and not happen to have any evidence, and it's like, I mean, I don't want to get too picky because it's like you'd be calling in a lot of you'd be questioning a lot of people, but whenever there's like somebody who's got something to profit from, then that's where
and
that's qui
you
bono
guys had
comes
never
in,
heard
right?
of on MSFT, right? I hadn't either. Well, now we have, because Cyberpunk 2077 is huge. So he was like, "Oh, well, let's see if we can hop on this bandwagon." And then he kind of cobbled together whatever it is. I don't know what to call it. I'm not going to call it an interview. I'm not going to do it that kind of justice. But I don't know what else to call it, really. It's just like a Frankenstein's hybrid thing. Um, and then now he's been heard of because he had info on something relevant that a lot of people want to hear about, and he just sort of put it out there. And I don't think anybody would have noticed, or we wouldn't have talked about it, if other major publications hadn't used like literally false data points in their headline, in their title. And that's why it spread really fast, and I'm sure caught your guys' attention, the Neon Arcade, and then through you guys, I talked about it as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's a speculation, or if it's like a leak or something like that, like we put out info before, and we put out info on multiplayer back when multiplayer was still like, from their own perspective, from their own like admitting, like you listen back to some of the posts now on their financial calls, it's like, yeah, up until like just recently, up until 2018, they were planning on adding multiplayer in at the same time. That was the plan going ahead
into the main game of
into the main
yeah.
game, and at some point in 2018, actually it might have been a little bit earlier, they had to stop that and say, look, it's too big and we don't want to do a half-assed job on this stuff, so we're going to do the multiplayer component afterwards in its own thing, and that'll be separate from 2077 from the get-go. But from the get-go, they had always planned, to have these two systems integrated, to have this like seamless multiplayer pop in, pop out kind of thing, have these, various events and stuff like that, social events, social pickup places. That was always the intention, but they got to a point where they just couldn't do it anymore because the game had changed and evolved so much that they were like, okay, no, we're going to do far more of a story focus, narrative focusing on that, and then expanding outward. And then of course we correct the statement when we said like, here's what we know about the multiplayer, and like, so that's fine because that's like, it's regular speculative journalism. But we never said it's like we're like, this is what we've heard and things can change. But this guy is like, hey, this is what's going on, because I talked to this interview, and here's the interview that I had with him. I don't have any audio of it, or and they don't have a record of it, but just that's how it is. And again, it's not because and it carried quite big. Everybody, quantified it with like, hey, this is really speculative because we said it's speculative. This is not 100%. This is a leak from inside, and it's kind of some cool stuff, and we don't do nearly as much leaks anymore because they've asked us not to. So it's like, all right, well, we slow down on that, but it was still reported as a speculative. This isn't being reported as speculative. This is being reported as fact.
Yeah,
and
true.
and this is what's going to end up. This is the kind of stuff that actually is like bad journalism because it's potentially harming the studio.
Yeah, because picture it comes in and there's like 30 street stories. I'm not saying that there are, right? I'm saying that like if it were to come back and there were 30 or 40, then everybody's going to look back at these titles and say, well, you said there were 75, right? So you said, so we knew there were 75 and there's not. So that means you didn't deliver on expectations, which means you failed and you're misleading us. And like people are so used to that now that it's like, it's kind of a, a hair trigger. And it's all going to be because of this propagation of whatever the hell that was that he wrote. So that was where my issue came in. And it's almost like the equivalent would be if I watched an IGN video and then I just made a 10-minute video quoting the IGN video and didn't say anything new and was like, and said it all as if it was true within a day of them. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know how so many large outlets just picked it up and like copy pasted it. Whatever.
Yeah, it's just the money making industry, because all of us said like, this is the first time we saw this website, and it always happens like this when you have like a game like Cyberpunk, which is trending. And now that we have this lack of news, and I wouldn't even call this bad journalism. No, this is just an attempt to gather traffic on your website based on Cyberpunk 2077. And he, of course, he's not going to double check his facts. He's going to lie about those interviews. And when he's caught, like, oh yeah, this is, well, maybe this doesn't happen, recently, and that's when their credibility just goes down. And the other bigger media conglomerates are going to pick it up because, of course, they also want that, as you said in your video, that ad revenue. So it's just how the industry today works, sadly.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I push back against. I mean, it's the way the industry works, but I don't like that. I don't like that that's how it works. It shouldn't be. I mean, I can remember days where I used to, what was that magazine from GameStop? There was a magazine from GameStop. I don't remember what it was called. And I had a monthly subscription, and I actually really liked reading the articles in there, reading about the game. And now when I try and replicate that and I read online publications, I just don't see any of it. I see a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with the game. I see sometimes reviews like the Monster Hunter review. Oh man, that made me so upset. Like, for anyone that doesn't know, there was a Monster Hunter review where the whole premise was basically, why do you kill the monsters? This isn't cool. And it was like, I don't even know what to do with something like that. So that's where it comes from. And then day in and day out, I'm like, I can't. I just want to yell about this, and I'm super annoyed at all the journalists that propagate this stuff. And
why do you steal the cars in Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah, exactly. That's the exact equivalent. I don't understand it.
Sorry, I just remembered. This is just reminding me of this from several years ago, a cartoon. I don't know if it was in response to something from PETA or if it was just a joke, but it was Mario giving a response to PETA about like stomping Goombas or something. Anyway. You've also done, you cover, not exclusively Cyberpunk 2077, of course, but it's another common theme on your channel, covering the coverage of Cyberpunk 2077 specifically. And you did a very interesting video a few days ago that I watched yesterday. And it did get me thinking about the nature of the hype surrounding Cyberpunk 2077. And it was a little speculative, but I do think that your thinking on it was quite good, and we've seen examples of this kind of a thing before. But you speculated that the hype. You made some speculations on the hype and said, let's say Cyberpunk 2077 turned out to not be a good game. Completely theoretical proposition, because you made it clear you're anticipating that it will be a good game. But if it wasn't, that the hype is such that it would cause a degree of cognitive dissonance for people, and that people would defend it endlessly no matter what happened with it, and that you suspect this is happening with several other games that are of subpar quality. Is that an accurate characterization of what you said in that video? It is early morning, so I hope my brain is processing that all correctly. But is that an accurate sort of retelling of your ideas that you said in that video?
I think so, yeah. By the way, if I disappear for like tech issues, there's a windstorm right now, which means it might be like messing with the wires, so I'll disconnect and just come back, just to let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I do believe that's pretty accurate for a summary. I mean, like kind of I don't know, I haven't really talked about this much before. I didn't hype it up publicly, but I personally, on like an individual level, I got hyped up for Anthem, like for me. And then when all that happened, I was like, it was unbelievable to me how fucking bad that game was. So that kind of stuff really, really strongly influenced how much I view hype to be a bad thing. Like, I firmly believe that Cyberpunk will be a good game. I like CD Projekt Red. I have Witcher swords on my wall. I have a Cyberpunk figurine over there. I really do think it will be good, but I think the current levels of hype is too much. it's just too much. I don't know how it was like the best selling game after 1 hour of coming out on Steam before it got delayed for many months, like all this stuff. I don't think it's going to be bad, but like the hype is just too much.
Yeah, and that is an interesting perspective. It got me thinking and sort of being introspective a little bit as somebody who produces content about Cyberpunk 2077 quite a lot. We are, I would say, individually hyped for the game. We try to temper that in our content. We have been accused of just being CD Projekt Red fanboys before, which I don't think is an accurate.
Paid in millions.
I've always thought that's hilarious, considering my stance on several of their decisions.
Yeah, exactly. We have criticized where we think they've made mistakes. One classic, and I don't want to get into actually discussing this, but one classic example being the decision to make Cyberpunk 2077 entirely first person.
Which I completely disagree with, and I have gone on several rants about multiple times, which again we don't want to relaunch here. Everybody knows that, but it's like we can't possibly be called fanboys because we're like, hey, we really don't like these decisions, and I get into actual conversations with some of the devs about it, and they go, we didn't really think about that beforehand, and I'm like, well, would have been nice if you spent 5 minutes thinking about that, and the the potential of like running into stuff, and so we've done that and have been very clear on that, and they understand that and they respect it, which is one of the reasons why, again, we actually do like them and we actually do defend them, because how many studios right now are willing to actually step forward and say, hey, so yeah, we know we messed up, or we realize that we've made a mistake and we're coming back to rectify it, or like having an actual conversation on that. You don't have that. Like, look at what happened with bloody Blizzard. It's like they shipped that horrendous excuse of the game, and now the head of Blizzard is going, I'm sad because you guys were expecting a game, a certain level of product polish that didn't get shipped. I'm sorry you were expecting that. I'm so sad because you were expecting us to do something that we've done for like how many years? Like how many canceled projects because they weren't 100%. They were like 90%. And they just canned them over and over and over and over and over again. How many times did we lose StarCraft Ghost because it just wasn't perfect enough? Like a game that
wasn't even 90%, or Warcraft 3 isn't even 90%. I don't know what percent that is, but it's
But and they put out this steaming pile of garbage that is just like, it's like, dude, even your advertising, every advertising piece of advertisement you use for this is made up of false information. Like, and they're going to get in trouble with this because they're still running that like promo video in some countries where they're showing that like enhanced screen cinematic thing, and that doesn't exist in the game. Like, that's something that they made to show at BlizzCon that has never ever been added to the actual game. Like the audio.
This is another concerning trend among game game publishers, I should say. That so that's exactly what they did with Anthem. That's actually, although Anthem's, I would say, is probably worse.
Oh yeah, it was definitely worse. But yeah, it was what was it? Some special model they made for the exec at EA, right? And then they showed it to him at Bioware, and he loved it so much, and then they just shipped it. But there was none of it existed. They were like, "Oh, here's this one little level we specifically created to impress our boss," and then they were like, "World, here's a game," and it didn't exist.
Oh god.
And then they tried to make it and failed miserably.
Are they working on this update? I know I've been hearing a lot about that, to actually like overhaul the game or something.
Yeah,
like Anthem Next kind of style. I've heard about that too. I didn't dig in. I don't know anything factual, but I mean, I would kind of support that. They really need kind of what was the other game that did that? No Man's Sky. They need a No Man's Sky style revamp, overhaul batch of content to get that playable. Really, well, it's playable, but to get it where it should have always been for the money and for the hype.
That's probably the
The
best
problem now,
possible thing they could do. I think that they've lost a lot of reputation. I don't know that the game would ever recover to the point where they wanted
I
it,
don't
where
think
it
it
could have
will.
originally been. Like No Man's Sky, I understand No Man's Sky is a pretty good game now, but I have had zero desire to pick it up.
That's
Well,
true.
one of the things, so I can actually speak a little bit on this. I wasn't planning on, but it's like originally I was under the NDA for the original release of Anthem, but I'm not anymore, bitches. Yeah. So now their plan is to move forward with this being an experimental groundwork for future live service stuff for EA, and that they had originally put Chad Robertson in charge of it, and he quit. And they put somebody else in charge of it, and he quit. And now it's in charge of being run by not really anybody. So the potential of having an actual like next launch is a little bit like they're gonna try some stuff. Somebody was in it had popped into the game yesterday or day before, I think, and they had posted screenshots. All of their Christmas stuff is still up.
Yeah, the Christmas
Yeah.
decorations. Yeah,
Yeah,
and if you
it's
listen to the EA financial calls, I don't remember exactly which quarter it was, but
mhm.
there was one where they mentioned Anthem like 90 something times. Then there was one where they mentioned it like 26 times. And then I think in the second most recent one, I haven't heard the most recent one, they mentioned it twice. And it was basically to dodge talking
Mhm.
about it. So I don't know if they're even going to mention it at all in future, earnings calls or whatever. So to me, it sounds like they've totally moved on, despite saying repeatedly, "We're not going to move on. We're not going to move on from it." Like they pulled a Mass Effect
Yeah.
Andromeda.
No, and I think this is what we're starting to see. So an interesting thing with Chad Robinson when he left, he happened to post some new stuff on his LinkedIn and in a couple of other places, stating that he's had worked on several new IPs, unreleased projects at Bioware,
Hmm.
and this is after he left being one of the leads on the Old Republic uh, game, the SWOTOR game, not the KOTOR game, but the SWOTOR game, and he left. Then he was put in charge of the whole Anthem thing and left that. But apparently, between those two things, he'd worked on two other projects at the very minimum. So this is kind of interesting. Going, okay, this means that you know, this means that Bioware might have more up their sleeve. Are they going to be able to pull it off? Well, I kind of doubt it because they've lost all of the people, like all of the good people that really made the studio click, from like every team leader to all the way down to like some really core people are now working at many other companies, and
True, they
we
did
have that.
fragment pretty far
Mhm.
across the industry.
Yeah, and they fragmented out. And so this new studio that Chad Robinson is running is brand new. We ran that story a couple days ago. Very interesting because this is going to really open up potential for like new content um, in the same kind of like storyline, kind of Bioware or Bioware esque type, experiences. That's a thing that is potentially going to happen now. That's archetype. What is it? Archetype. I can't remember what the other name of that is. It'll come to me in a second. Um, Archetype Entertainment, right? Derp, derp. So it's Archetype Entertainment. That's who Chad Robinson is leading right now, and that is a Wizards of the Coast independent studio. So Wizards of the Coast has funded it, but they don't actually have any ability to to control day-to-day operations. So Chad Robinson is going to be running the whole thing. Very interesting. Works off of a similar rule set to D&D. So interesting, very interesting. But yeah, now we have that, and Chad Robinson is stepped away from that. So Anthem, I don't know. I really don't think it's going to come back, and you know this is why we're skeptical of these studios, because everybody from BioWare to Blizzard and Bethesda has really just dropped the ball on expectations, and they've done so to try and chase cash.
Hmm.
Try to chase the microtransactions, trying to chase that kind of stuff, and it's like shut up and play the microtransaction game.
Yeah, and I don't get that vibe from CD Projekt Red. I don't want to say that I do. I think that they're kind of the last bastion of consumer friendly approaches at the moment. But surrounded by so many examples, Blizzard, Bethesda, Bioware and EA, Anthem, that whole debacle, all that stuff. With all that as their peers, it's really hard to not think in the back of your mind, like, what if, and we should really be prepared for the worst possible scenario, because if you're positively surprised, then great, that's fantastic. That's the best way to play a game, when you're like, wow, this is so great. But if you set your expectations at the moon and like nothing can ever hit it, then it's like, oh. And I never got that vibe from you guys. I mean, just a little transparency on the video. I'm not trying to like punch down or anything, so anybody that wants to know specifically, you can go watch the video if you'd like to. But there's like one specific creator that covers Cyberpunk every day I was watching, and he's like, oh, these street rats don't know as much about the game as me. And I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, I was like, you little shithead. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah, we know who you're talking about. We do.
Yeah, so I always got like a very objective, analytical, reporting vibe from you guys. And me and Subsidian have talked in the DMs quite a bit about various different topics and whatever. So there are definitely channels that cover a lot of Cyberpunk that do an excellent job of it. But having watched like a bunch of those videos, I was like, what? I mean, like, there's also the other side of it. This game's gonna save gaming. It's the Jesus of the video game industry. And I'm like, it's a little far, man.
Yeah.
No, I think that,
I mean, it's to be concerned, but and I wanted to bring this up here too, because we've been toying around with mentioning it. We have some new connections in another studio that has, it's basically mostly like Bioware people, like old school Bioware people, and not a lot of like big names. I can't list off like a bunch of big names that you would have heard before, but I can list off a ton of people who were team leads or up for the team lead position. People who've been like lead programmers and core developers there at Bioware for like years. They've all moved over. A lot of these people have moved over to this new studio called Improbable. And we can't say anything yet, but they're working on a game that is going to be really, really good, and is going to be a spiritual successor to some of our favorite Bioware type stuff. And then we have Larian Studio, which is working on the successor to the Baldur's Gate series with Baldur's Gate 3, and they're trying to replicate that. They're trying to replicate a system in which, if you're a fan of like live DM, like Dungeons and Dragons experiences in games, where that's going to be their primary goal, is to give us that. So we're starting to see new studios pop up that are doing things that we've been asking these older studios to do for a long time. And like Blizzard, Bioware, I know a lot of people that are still there. I still know a lot of the work that's gone on there. They're not bad people. They just had a really bad string of leadership. And the leadership is kind of like, they're Canadian, so they're obviously not going to be unkind. They're going to be overly kind and overly apologetic, and so they're not going to actually come forward and say, yeah, hey, by the way, we were forced to work with this Frostbite engine and it was garbage, and that's why we had a crap that's why we had a crap experience with Andromeda and with Anthem. And it's just like, they're never going to say that, because they're just too nice. Stupid Canadians.
Although one of the devs did come out and basically say that, although he said it in a very polite way, but did point out that there was a lot of problems working with that engine on various games.
Yeah.
Just going back to this point about CD Projekt being sort of the savior of gaming, and Cyberpunk 2077 almost being the second coming. Our philosophy on this is that we believe in, criticizing the big companies where they go wrong, which, we do a lot, but we also want to support where we see companies going right, making the right decisions, being consumer friendly, that kind of a thing. And so that's why we have thrown so much support behind CD Projekt Red. We really do appreciate what they're doing, and we have criticized them where we think they've made mistakes. We know that the company's not perfect. It has had its share of issues, and we've covered that as well. But
yeah, like one area where they deserve support, and I definitely threw my weight there too, was the microtransaction thing. I don't remember exactly what call it was, but there was the financial call, and he said we're looking into monetization, or we're thinking about monetization. It was something like that, like some very forward-looking speculative, like we're thinking about monetization. And everybody was like, microtransactions confirmed in Cyberpunk. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that was again in the headlines of those articles. CD Projekt Red confirms microtransactions, or slyly.
Even though the person who led that story knew when they posted it that was a lie, because there was the word microtransactions was not there, and these guys are Polish, is being like English translated, and what they meant by monetization is like how are you going to get money for the game that you're working on, coming up in the mean
Well, that's literally what monetization means.
That's
Selling
what
a
the
game is
monetization means.
monetizing.
They're
Like,
yeah. And he was like, well, we've looked at the ways that we monetize the Witcher series, and we believe that there's no real need to mess with any of the monetization that we've established thus far. That was his response, and they're like, microtransactions confirmed, everybody. And it's like, and it's so convenient because we've pointed this out before, going all the way back to E3. It's like they actually, like, there's a lot of studios, or not studios, there's a lot of journalistic establishments that are connected to other game studios that have any way you cut it, they have, and this isn't hidden information, this is public information. There's a couple of the big news broadcasters are owned by the same people who own other studios, other game creation studios, and they give positive interview after positive interview. They spin everything positively, and they try to make sure that, oh no, this company's doing great job, they're doing great work, and they're going to make some awesome games, and never a negative story. CDPR puts out a picture, and they rake them through the coals.
Oh yeah, what was it, like an advertisement that's lore conforming, fits with all the stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you're transphobic." I was like, I don't. Okay.
It's like there's absolutely none of that.
and you know what didn't get covered was when they came out and said, we don't, the gender options are completely open in the character creator.
Didn't they do that actually in the lore response too? And they were like, okay, we're gonna do this to, like, I don't want to say appease, that sounds pejorative. We're gonna do this to fulfill the desires of a large group of our player base, or however large it is. And then people still were mad at them about that. I was like, I don't understand that. Like, we got to get mad over reasonable stuff. And it seems like people are getting mad over unreasonable stuff with Cyberpunk that doesn't even deserve to get mad about.
It seems anything that you can pick at with that company, like anything they can turn into a controversy. The gaming media, mainstream gaming media seems to want to do that.
Yeah, and actually damages the studio as well, because how I see CD Projekt Red right now is how some of these studios right now that are known to have microtransactions were before. When you look at Bioware, when you look at Ubisoft and whatever, like before, they really made good games. But it's when this corporate part, the money came in, how much money can we actually get from this product? And when, other people got involved that had no idea anything about games, their only view was, okay, how can I milk even more money out of this, like what they do in any other business? But they don't know that the gaming industry is a bit more I mean, it's different because once your game flops, your studio can has a really high chance to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've seen that. EA did that to many studios before.
True.
Just
they
to
shut
just
them
to
down.
kind of add on to this here, Ali in the chat, he said here that he's had a timid conversation with a fan, or sorry, somebody who was going to buy the game, but then heard that there was going to be microtransactions, got upset, and then refused to believe the misinformation was incorrect. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's
no,
the worst. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
God.
and it's like this is as time being pointed out in response to this, it's like, sounds like the dude literally needed to be angry about something.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna try and convince them to pre-order, but don't
Mhm.
shut that door, right? Like definitely don't go out and spend your money now without even thinking about it or researching, but don't close the door. It could be an amazing game. It really might be something that gives you, I don't know, could be thousands of hours. I mean, certain games give you thousands of hours of fun. Don't close the door forever. Don't be like, well, I'm never gonna touch it now because somebody said there was microtransactions. Like, no, please don't do that. The industry has enough bad games. Like,
Yeah.
we really need to have an open mind here.
Unfortunately, some of the skepticism is understandable, considering
Yeah,
we
definitely.
do have a lot of
Well-
previously really reputable studios that have gone in a bad direction. And on that note, I want to read this comment from Maya J or Maja J. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I apologize, but the comment says, Bethesda, Bioware, Blizzard. They got bored making AAA games. Now they make triple B games. I love that. Triple B games might have to be a new slang term we use in honor of Bethesda, Bioware, and Blizzard. Unfortunately,
It's so accurate.
It's pretty good, man. That's a good one.
yeah. Unfortunately, it kind of, when I see Triple B, I think Better Business Bureau. But anyway, Triple B games, yeah, might use that as kind of a joking slang term, because AAA really refers to budget size. I mean, it can
Do you
mean,
know the benchmarks for it? I actually don't know what technically quantifies a AAA game. I just know it's like a big game.
I don't know if there's like a
It's-
defined amount or a defined definition of it. Maybe Saib can talk to that, or maybe LastKnown. I don't know if you know.
It's one of those things that's kind of like innocuous. So like, Witcher 3, not technically a AAA game. Cyberpunk,
Really?
a AAA game. Yeah, their budget just wasn't like, from any perspective that you're looking at The Witcher 3, it had less than 400 total dedicated staff. It had was produced with less than $100 million USD. And so stuff like that is typically where the benchmark is. It's what made them a AAA studio, right?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
now they are working with a massive budget. Now they are working with well over 500 staffers. So that's kind of where you typically kind of call that. But at the same time, it's like you don't always have that, like, that confirmation is not always the same. Like Bethesda is more or less a AAA studio, like Bethesda proper, not all of their cohorts, and they've been under 400 staff members for a very long time. Like Skyrim was made with less than 400 people at the actual like direct studio. So like the studio that Todd Howard oversees, less than 400. I mean, nobody would say that Skyrim wasn't a AAA game or that Fallout 4 wasn't a AAA game.
Yeah.
And remind me to catch you up here, Yui, on the whole situation with Bethesda, because it's like as much as 76 was a horrible mistake, it wasn't actually like Todd Howard actually had zero ability to like direct the development of that game. He had to do a lot of
Who
PR
directed
for
it?
it.
Wait, what? Then how did they shit that thing out if he
It's
wasn't?
it's not him. It's a new person who's come into the financial side of the overall studio, which again, Todd doesn't have any direct control over the board of Bethesda and not ZeniMax. And it was ZeniMax who basically brought in a new investor who bought in, basically allowed them to scoop up all those additional companies, all those additional developers a few years ago. And they were the ones who ended up saying, okay, we're going to make Blades and we're going to make 76. and those are both under the direction of this new person who I can't name because he's known as a bit of like he
Oh, is he
forces people
lawsuit
out from
happy?
yeah,
Oh.
he's a lawsuit
Okay.
happy, and I mean
Ah.
ZeniMax normally is a lawsuit happy company. Like the head of that company is a former lawyer, litigation
Oh.
lawyer.
Oh, geez.
And he's just, I mean, like they've sued everybody, you know, they sued and they've lost most of it. So they sued Interplay,
They
they
sued that
sued
tiny little indie game, Pray for the
Mhm.
Gods,
yeah,
over
Pray for the Gods.
Prey. Yeah, I was
Mhm.
pissed about that because I covered Pray for the Gods. That was one. It's made by 3 people. It's this tiny little thing. It's wonderful.
That's
And they
another
were like,
yeah,
"No, the word pray, that's ours." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
which
they
really
were
is
the same
unfortunate
ones
because
who
the indie game market, the indie game development people out there, the people making games out of with in basements or in garages, tiny little companies, there's some really good games being produced by very talented people out there. It's unfortunate that games like that can't get more attention. It's something we want to do more on our channel.
Terror K. Yes, I was just about to mention Scrolls. They tried to like
The term
copyright claim
scrolls, yeah.
the word scrolls, and the international body looked at them and they were like, no, like, no. It's like, what was it? Some book author tried to copyright another like common term. Now she did like a I can't remember. She did one of them like a copy or trademark, and then she started contacting every other person who'd ever written a book, including books that were written before her series of books that contained that same name, and started to like claim and demand that they shut down all of their books and all of their stories because she had happened to have this word under control, and they were like, no, you don't own a word. You can't own a common word. You can't earn
You
it's
can't
like
even
it's the equivalent.
copyright
It's the equivalent
a.
Yep.
of McDonald's trying to copyright the word burger. It's like no, you can't do that. You can own McDonald's, but you can't
Yeah.
own burger. Like
I didn't follow it to completion, and I'm not positive this is correct, but I think if Pray for the Gods had fought them, like actually
Mhm.
fought them, then they would have won, but they caved because they didn't have the resources, right? They
Yeah.
couldn't like really
Well,
put the money.
that's the thing that happened with Interplay, and it's such a funny story because this goes back years because I was involved with Interplay at the time when they sold the rights to Bethesda to make Fallout 3, and Interplay took a huge payday for this. They paid off all of their debt. They were like 30 million in debt. They paid off 30 million in debt. They set aside a couple of million to make this multiplayer Fallout universe game.
Mhm.
And ZeniMax, and I want to make this clear, the people at ZeniMax were basically filed a lawsuit the day they started development on it because they said, "Oh, hey, we told you could make a Fallout MMO. You were not allowed to make a Fallout MMO based in the Fallout universe."
Mm.
That was their argument. And they
What's
took them to
that?
court.
Wow.
They took them
What
to
the hell?
court and they lost the first time, and then they appealed and they took it to the next level of court and they lost that one. And then they took it to the next level of court and lost that one. And then they're going to take it all the way up to the Supreme Court for this like out of all the things that the Supreme Court covers and deals with, a video game company saying, "Hey, we told them they could make a Fallout game, but what we actually meant is that they couldn't make a Fallout game within the universe of Fallout," and they would have lost. But by this time, it was like 4 years in. The Fallout 3 had come out, was massively popular, and there were so many people behind Bethesda saying, "I don't care. Interplay needs to die because they're daring to question the sanctity of God Emperor Todd Howard, and Todd Howard's vision of Fallout is far better than anything that these stupid people in Interplay could come up with, even though I still think Fallout 2 is the best, is still hands down, like, obviously not on a technical perspective, but hands down is still the best Fallout game, period. And maybe tied with Fallout New Vegas. and neither of those are made by.
Yeah, right. Those are the two that aren't Bethesda.
So it's like guys, hold your horses here, but it's just shocking that now you like, if I had explained to them at the time, oh, don't worry, Bethesda's going to make an online MMO, Fallout type game, and you're going to hate it with every fiber of your being. They would have been like, no, they can't make a mistake. And again, this wraps into what the main theme is like, these studios, they lose themselves after a long time. And there might be a time, 20, 30 years down the road, might be 10, might be 15, hopefully it's 20, hopefully it's 40, hopefully it's 100 years down the road, that CDPR is no longer the company that they are now because of the leadership leaving or passing on or what have you, horrible, sad, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, this is what the universe, comes down to. Bye, Gaber Notes. We'll see you later. And thanks for the coffee. Love it. Love you.
Everybody's afraid of losing out on money, right? Like so with Blizzard just now, they did the whole like, we own all your custom maps that you make, because they're deathly afraid of missing out on another Dota, right? They look
so
back
mad.
and they kick themselves, and they keep kicking themselves because Dota 2, right? Like that all stemmed from their Warcraft 3, and they didn't get anything. So they're pissed.
Did you see the game modes that are top currently trending?
Oh my
right
god.
now
Are you talking about the
Warcraft
really,
3?
really, really, really like offensive ones?
The extremely offensive ones
Yes.
that Blizzard owns 100%.
Oh,
There's the particular put them in the oven game.
Yeah, it's called 6 million.
Oh, God.
Yeah, don't go into it anymore because
I won't.
Spencer, but good lord, I said jokingly on the Wednesday podcast, I was like, it would be something if somebody made a mod for Warcraft 3 where it's like you're defending the island of Hong Kong against the this enemy called the Corpse CP something, CCP.
Yeah.
And just have like the all the wonderful things about the Hong Kong movement involved in that. And it's like, no, they beat me to the punch, and they went a lot further. They went a lot further than that.
And there's a lot of them.
I know.
Like,
It's unending right now, and it's like, this is absolutely hilarious, and couldn't have happened to a nicer company, because this is so poetic justice right now, because they can't help it. They own all of that stuff, lock, stock, and barrel. If they go to court and somebody like sues them, they've got no defense.
It's right in their EULA. We own anything you create for this game. Absolutely.
Oh God.
And never underestimate the internet. You think you're being smart, putting this legal jargon in, and just think you're pulling one over on the people who have grown up in internet culture. No, they will meme you to death, and they will burn you alive. It's rather funny.
Please tell me that they have somewhere in that contract that if it's in any way, shape, or form or offensive, that they can scrap it. Because if they don't have that,
they did not include that at all. They did not think ahead enough to put two and two together. They and it's so funny, because it's like couldn't have happened to a nicer company. You Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
I've seen people defend them though and be like, well, it's nothing out of the ordinary. I'm like, no, it's pretty out of the ordinary as far as I understand it. Like that, no other company is doing that to that. Like they have a whole section of the EULA or whatever that's like very pointedly designed to maximize control.
There is it is kind of boilerplate to have it, to just make it clear that, they still maintain ownership over any of their assets. But what Blizzard is doing differently is they're saying any original material that you create. So like, say you write a song or record some new voice lines for your mod. They're saying we own that stuff, even though it's 100% created by you. and not us. So that's
So
from
that's
what I
not
understand.
typical, right? Yeah, that's not something normal
absolutely
companies
not.
do.
Like normally,
Yeah.
like if you mod Fallout or Skyrim, obviously, you know, Bethesda maintains ownership over what they created. You can't you can't make a mod using a bunch of their assets and then sell it, for example. But they don't own, like if you record original lines or anything like that, they don't own any new stuff that you created from scratch.
Because you know why? Because then they would have to stand up and accept or delete every single mod that was ever created. Not only is that so again, Blizzard might put a couple people in charge of like going over to the maps and you know checking it and filtering this stuff out and kicking this stuff out. But the thing is that if this game, for as long as it's going to be around forever now, even after they bring down the servers, any mod that you make, could be 50 years from now, they're, you know, dead and gone basically, right? And you know, some asset company is sitting on it, and somebody can make a Warcraft 3 map, you know, with just like the old tools that are, you know, for a game that's not even accessible anymore, and they're gonna have to answer to why they own, you know, this mod. It's like, this is why Bethesda
They
doesn't
didn't
do
think
this,
that
because
through, did they?
they're not insane authoritarian like just great, like I don't know what other word to put it. They're not insane.
Yeah, they got driven insane by Dota. I mean, I can't even imagine, I can't even comprehend really having to sit there for years and look at one of the most successful franchises of all time, right? Dota. And knowing that like all of that, all of it could have been yours and it's
Well,
not.
and that's the thing is like so when it originally started to like formulate, um I was very close to Blizzard at the time, and they had people saying, "Hey, this is pretty cool game mode. Maybe we should do something with it." And the response was, and this is as close to a quote as I can remember, but the quote was, "Yeah, we're not really interested in what, you know, the you know, what a bunch of like nerds putting stuff together in their mom's basement has. It's a flash in the pan. It's never gonna stick." That was basically what they went with and launched with, and it's like, dude, you have no idea. Because, again, it comes down to this thing which we've talked about before. How many times is somebody on the you know, they're standing on top of the tower saying, "I am the god of all things, and I see that I'm never going to be challenged because this is the pinnacle of creation." And then the next day somebody builds a bigger tower. It's like now they're the ones who are being looked down on. You know, one of my favorite examples is BlackBerry. BlackBerry, 6 months before the iPhone was released, the very first iPhone, stood up with their BlackBerry, the old one, like the really old one, and said, "This is the pinnacle of all like mobile technology. This will be used in 50 years. There is no advancements that can be made to the cell phone that we haven't made." And as soon as I heard that, I told everybody I knew who had stocks in that company, I said, "Pull your stocks out of that company immediately.
Yeah.
This guy is going to crash the company." And it's basically, I mean, it's basically defunct now anyways. But it's like basically you've flown yourself into the side of a mountain at Mach 3.
Yeah, it's
When you
Icarus.
say-
Flies too close to the sun, gets burned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Well, I mean, yeah. Anyway, so while we're on the thing of Blizzard, so Blizzard has brought in the guy who headed up the God of not God of War. Oh crap.
All right. Well, you
Gears of War. Gears of War.
Gears of War. I just want to. I just want to interject here quickly and remind everybody you are listening to the Augmented Reality podcast. We love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we would welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and a whole bunch of other community members about all the things we love to talk about. We got rooms on tons of different topics, and you can also stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join. Be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. We have Upper Echelon Gamers on the show today. We've got LastKnownMeal. It's been a great conversation so far. If you tuned in a little bit later on in the show, those are the additional voices you're hearing. Of course, myself, Ash, and Subsidian is here as well as usual. People are having fun with the triple B gaming acronym. I like Shua82's bad, boring, bland, and then Time Bean. I like this one a lot. Triple B Gaming stands for Big Budget Boredom.
That's good too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was just diving into some
Rod,
shakeups at Blizzard that are happening.
So Rod Ferguson, who's basically been the lead developer on the Gears game for a very long time. Dude even has a Gears tattoo. He is leaving the studio that he's been working at for many, many years, and he is now joining with Blizzard to head and oversee their entire Diablo franchise.
I heard he has a bit of a reputation as a fixer.
Yeah.
Like he gets shit done and like rights the ship. You think?
Yeah. That's his best. This is who he is at his core. Is somebody who comes in, fixes problems, gets studios on track. So this is interesting. It's huge news as far as Blizzard goes, because they are paying him a lot of money to come and fix that stuff, which means that Diablo 4 has encountered some major problems, because they wouldn't have brought him in if everything was flying hunky-dory and they were so ready and willing to launch Fallout 4. Sorry, not Fallout 4. Goddamn. Diablo 4, next year or even this year, which is kind of what they had sort of semi-alluded to. Yeah, well, I mean, they put out the trailer last year. And then just again, no actual statement, but just alluding to the fact that Fallout again. Why am I saying Diablo 4 is gonna be it's coming out. It's gonna be great. It's coming out. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have the alpha for sure in 2019, 2020. 2019 didn't happen. Now 2020, it looks like we might be getting the alpha access to certain people. But now all of this is now called into question, because Rod has come in and he's basically gonna like take everything and run with it. And again, it's like don't bring in the dude who made Fallout or Diablo.
You got Fallout 4 on the brain, man.
I got a Fallout on the brain for some reason. I keep looking at the stupid thumbnail. On the podcast, because I'm looking over at the comments, and every time I look over at the comments I see Fallout, and I'm like, Anyways, the dude who made Diablo 2, the head guy at the studio at that point, made Diablo 2, did just an amazing job. Then he left the company. He was forced out of Blizzard. And that, you remember that young punk, you probably remember this. You remember that young punk who was in control of Diablo 3, the really crap
not
version.
very well.
And he came out and said "F that guy" when he was talking about the original creator. Like he tweeted, or it was a tweet, or it was a forum message or something. He was like, "Yeah, F that guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm gonna make the most amazing Diablo game ever." And he was the one who made the release version of Diablo 3, which most people remember,
cartoon one,
basically like destroyed itself almost.
Oh yeah.
Like, he was responsible for the bank store in the game, right? So that you could buy and sell things for real.
The auction house thing, that whole
the auction house thing.
Oh god.
Yeah. He was responsible for all of that, all of the bad decisions that almost destroyed, Diablo 3. He was responsible for all of those decisions. Why they couldn't go back and bring in this other guy, who's made some pretty successful games since then, or like, that would be admitting that they were wrong. That would be admitting that they made a mistake, and they
don't want to do that.
They made a mistake. Oh my goodness, no.
I don't see them competing. Well, I mean, it'll compete on name alone, but
Yeah.
I don't really see Diablo 4 competing with Path of Exile 2 in any content
No.
scope at all.
And I mean, right now, I would be very shocked if it came out before.
It can't.
Like, and
There's no way it won't. It can't.
in any of these games that are coming out, there's you know, I've talked about Arc from time to time. Arc seems to have hit a development hell snafu, so that I don't. It's kind of like I don't know if that game is going to make it out to audiences, which is really sad because I was that had some serious gusto behind it. But there's another game, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But it's another Asian developer who's been working on this game. It had come out as kind of one thing. It's been kind of rebranded and taken back to the drawing board, and is now coming out as something different. Everybody who I know who plays like the Eastern, you know, ARG, like Diablo-esque type games, they swear that this is the new thing. And then we have Torchlight 3, which was formerly Torchlight Frontiers, which was a mobile integrated microtransaction riddled game. They walked into that and said, "Hey, we're canning all of this stuff. We're making this a premium game. You spend money on it, you buy it. It's good. There's no microtransactions. There's no additional currencies that you have to buy. You just buy the game now. We're rebranding it Torchlight 3, and we're walking away from all of this like just garbage stuff." And they did this under Perfect World Entertainment, so that was not easy whatsoever to do, because they had to walk in there and basically give a big middle finger to one of the like, people talk about how EA is bad, and you know how Blizzard and
Yeah, Perfect World's really
Activision.
bad. Yeah.
That
Perfect
was
World is the, I mean, they're the ones who invented like screw over developers for money. Like
I'm trying to
they're
remember
the
what that MMO was I played from Perfect World a long time ago.
was it the one with the cat people?
It might have been named Perfect World.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, Perfect World.
It sucked. It was horrible, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know exactly what they're all about.
Yeah, and
Alright.
it's just like wow, they really like. I don't know what Blizzard can do to combat this stuff, because like, you know, everything from Path of Exile to Torchlight 3, like
yeah.
this stuff is going to steamroll them like bigly.
Yeah. What about that Project TL? Have you ever heard about that?
That might be one of the,
It's
the other thing I'm thinking
like
of.
a Diablo, like, kind of a game, but like what they've shown, the physics and everything, I was like, whoa. And it looks one of those games you're never going to see like past the trailer or some gameplay snippet.
You're like, that's too good. That can't be real,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And
I hate when you see stuff like that. And you're like, oh, I don't believe it. It's too good. And you're like, no, I want to believe it, but I don't.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the game that I was referring to. Is this this is the one. So they've gone back to the drawing board on this one. They've released, or they've made a again, I'm really positive this is the one I'm thinking of. But they basically confirmed that they are that they're going to be, reworking this from the ground up, and that they're going to be removing, a lot of the microtransaction systems that people were really worried about. They've completely redone the game from the ground up, and yeah, this is again going to be a very, very interesting, potentially bringing this studio back to its highlights. Yeah, and it's something that was at one point one thing and is now something different. So,
All right, let's.
And
Oh no, please go ahead.
No, and they had, the past, they had some good games. The NC Soft, they had like the Guild Wars, Aeon. I used to play these things, so hopefully.
Combat Arms was fun. I remember that one.
Oh, I didn't
From
try
NC
that.
Soft. NCSoft Combat Arms, there was like certain modes that were pretty cool. They're probably modded though. But yeah, no, NCSoft, you're right. They definitely had some stuff there. Some solid gems.
Yeah, they've been quiet for the past couple of.
yeah, and
bit.
this is one of the reasons why they've been quiet, is they had worked on this project and they had run into some serious issues, but now they're recentered their focus, and they've created something that, again, from what I'm hearing from people who have, this is their kind of like livelihood, is that they're the bridge between the Eastern and the Western market, and they're saying, look, this game is going to be great because they've redone everything. They realized that they were playing into fads and things that were not as popular. They realized they were making some mistakes. Now we're going to have a game that's actually like what people have been wanting to have. They had this really confusing system where you controlled like multiple characters and you swap between them. It was very incoherent as far as like trying to just describe the thing in it. And now they've said no, we've gone back, and now you're going to play your one hero. It's going to be in the ARG type thing that you're used to. Yeah, and they're going to do that. So
Nice.
yeah, interesting.
Nice.
Some other news this
good.
week. It's been a bit of a shakeup at Rockstar. Dan Houser, one of the founders of the company, has left the company. And so this could be interesting for Rockstar Games. I don't know if you have any analysis on that, but it's just some news that came across my feed. Also, I
am hoping that that this was one of the people who loved sending the goons out.
Oh yeah.
I'm hoping. I don't know. I have no information on this.
I would hope so too.
Ever since that happened, we basically kind of like walked away from covering anything like my sources like whatnot. It's like no, I'm not lifting a finger to help you guys now. We're officially enemies. Like you take down Sub that way. It's like prepare.
Yeah, he never got his channel back, did he?
Yep.
Nope.
It's just that was it.
Nope.
It was over.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We should talk about System Shock 3, though. We had a request on our Discord server to talk about this. It's being speculated that the game could be in trouble due to layoffs at Other Side Entertainment.
It's been a long time coming. I've been saying for a while now. Now you have to remember, System Shock 3 and the System Shock remake are two different projects being done by two different studios. But we've gotten, looks like, more confirmation that System Shock 3 is in dire straits, that financially they are not in a good place at all, that they are essentially ready to like fold. They've done a lot of work on the game. It sounds like they have really, like, they had started it, they had blown through a lot of their budget by trying to overshoot and trying to like come up with stuff and trying to like build a bridge between stuff that just wasn't there, and like it just the standard thing that happens with a lot of newer game studios who they try to take too much. They try to do too much. They look at a project and they go, yeah, let's do this, and they overreach, and they're not able to finish the game because they've reached out so far. And instead of just doing a project that they know they can complete, they shoot for the moon and then they fail. It's never a bad thing to shoot for the moon, but like you just have to realize that doesn't always work. And there's a lot of these studios who, unfortunately, like, I don't know if we're going to even get a release on this at this point. They had to sell back the license because that's how financially in trouble they were.
Spiral, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we're hearing is the confirmation of what I started to hear way back in June, is that unfortunately things were not going good and they started to spiral. And now it looks like through the latest series of layoffs, and the way that some people are talking about it seems to suggest that the company is basically going bankrupt. If you break an NDA with a company that's going bankrupt, there's usually no you don't get in trouble for that because
there's no threat.
The company's dead, basically. And it's what we're starting to hear. I hope that they manage to push the game out. And I would prefer them to push it out in any state than to have yet another game that we've heard so much about, we've seen so much about, be relegated to like
Yeah, EverQuest
I
next, right?
hate seeing these beautiful game worlds just trashed because of money people and bad leadership. It's like I can't stand that. It's such a loss on such a grand scale. And I mean, well, we have it now again with Warcraft 3. It's like you can't play Warcraft 3 Classic anymore. The game doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
Blizzard
Yeah,
went
that's the worst part, man.
overwrote.
That
Yeah.
sucks so bad.
Yep.
They stripped out features, overwrote the game. So now I don't remember the list of features, but it was like leaderboards and maybe like clan support or something. Like a bunch of stuff no longer exists, and the classic version is just fucked up because they made it. That makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Did you guys grow up with Warcraft 3?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was more of an Empires player. And I gotta say, with that, I haven't gotten back into like RTS, like real time strategies. I much prefer like Stellaris and Civilization, just because I can I can alt tab whenever I need to, right? And I'll tab for 3 hours, come back to it, and it's my turn's still waiting there. I cannot do that with you can't really do that with Age of Empires. But I have to say that Age of Empires, Microsoft has really done a bang up job on that. From everything that everybody's talking about it to just like I'm still friends with a lot of people who play that. That's still their main game, has been for like how many decades now, and they're saying like what Microsoft has done to this title is amazing. They have reinvented everything in the best possible way, and they have remained true to it. And we're having some new titles in this coming down the pipeline soon. Part of like this whole like new face of Microsoft, which again is
I was playing did Definitive Edition the other day, and it is very good.
Oh, that's good. That's good news, because it's like that means that at least somebody has gotten it through their skull that you can't run a company doing this. It's just not feasible. You can't keep running your fan base into the wall over and over and over again, just giving absolutely no two pences about their opinions whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't care. What do you mean you're our primary and single source of income? We don't care. Go play another game. It's like good Lord. And you're watching the crash in real time now with some of these companies, and it's horrifying.
Stronghold actually went through that because they started out as a great real-time strategy game back when it came out, and then everything after Crusader, when they introduced magic and all of that, the game just flopped. It flopped hard.
You're talking. That's my childhood. Stronghold Crusader, the custom map maker. I would make like 400 lions, and then I would find like creative ways to kill them. That was what I would do for 2 hours a day during my computer time on the weekends.
That's true. That's
such a good game, dude. Such a good game. But you're right. And then as soon as they got into Stronghold, what it was like the third one or whatever, Stronghold 2, because Crusader was the good one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The Stronghold 2, Stronghold Legends. Now they're doing Warlords, I guess.
Oh god. They ruined it with that stuff, but the original ones, they were pristine. And you know what's weird too is that Blizzard has done remasters before, like with StarCraft. They remastered StarCraft and it was good. Everybody was fine with it. It was they did a good job. So that's what baffles me about Warcraft 3. Like they've done it before. It's not like they've never done it and they were like, "Oh, we whiffed. Sorry, we missed the mark." They're like, "Oh, we've done it before successfully, but this time we went in a completely different direction and just botched it."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good choice.
Probably just let's get it out of the way so we can earn more money from like zero work. Because it was funny. I was coming up to my friend and he was doing something and I was like, is this really Reforged? Because he was playing it. I was like, at that point I didn't see how actually the game looked like, because it released at that same day and he bought it like really fast. He was disappointed. But I was looking at it. I was like, is this really Reforged? Because it looks almost exactly like the old Warcraft. I was like, what's the difference in this? And they charge you like what, €40, $40, something like that.
Way more than they should, because it's the same thing. There was a side by side on Twitter, like a screenshot and another screenshot. They're like, guess which one is the new one? And I looked at it. I mean, I could guess, right? But my first impression, I was like, wait a second, can I guess? Do I actually know which one's the remastered? And I was like, that's a problem if you can't even really tell.
Yeah. And I don't know how this. Imagine, so what if someone makes a Dota map for Reforged? How can how can Blizzard say we own this? No, we don't.
Yeah,
That's gonna be like just from that. My God.
Robin in
Very
our chat,
content.
Chris. Robin wants to know what did the Lions ever do to you?
Oh, they were okay. So every time you would make all the lions, and then you would shoot one arrow at them, every single lion on the entire map, it was like a coding error maybe. Every single lion would go after you. So you could make these giant armies of them, and then shoot one arrow, and then everybody would attack you, and you had to like set up all the walls and like the flaming tar and everything, and you had to like survive. It was like my own version of Nazi zombies, kind of, but like lion zombies.
You have made enemies with the Lion faction.
Yeah, and they would all like get up and then all come in from all the angles and like find and the pathing was so that they would always like find wherever there was a crevice or something. So if you had a castle and there was like one little point that they could get in, they'd all go there. So I don't know, it was just fun. And I was little too. I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, that's some emergent gameplay right there.
The good old days of normal gaming without
I
the
used
live
to do
services.
yeah. I used to do similar things in Age of Empires as well.
That was a big one. I used to just make priests over and over, like an army of priests, and then convert everything around me.
Yeah, I did that too.
That was fun, dude.
It's like I would take everything over, then I'd be like send a message like, all your armies are now mine.
Yeah, I used to. Oh, I still remember those sound effects. When they're converted stuff.
Yes. Oh my God. Or when you like the dock one to me. Sometimes I would play the game so much I would hear when I would go to sleep. I'd hear ding 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 every time you click a dock.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question for you, Chris, from one of our regulars in our words work.
Discord.
One of our regulars on our Discord server, Somnolence, says, I have a question mainly for the guest, given his content. Now, this is actually more of a statement, but I guess they want your thoughts on this. So, games are meant to provide fun or escape from reality, but coverage of them these days, either by gaming journalists or YouTubers, focus on a lot of unrelated things because there's always something happening, and it's usually negative. I am not sure how much people can stomach hearing about the new bad thing Blizzard has done, etc. Sure, knowing these things is important, but somewhat useless since we can't affect much. Voting with wallets doesn't work when the gaming industry makes 80% of money from microtransactions. So I guess the gist of it is, what are your thoughts on, like, how important is it to cover all of the surrounding stuff, sort of external to the games themselves, but talking about things like microtransactions and, I don't know.
I have a thing I could add on this. It kind of is a little bit of a pre-response. Let me know, Chris, if this kind of hits it on the head for you. It's like restaurants. It's like, yeah, McDonald's is huge. They're $1 billion company and they're everywhere. But there's a lot of mom and pop steak houses and breakfast places and family restaurants that make more than enough living for them and their entire family. And I feel that that's kind of where we're at with kind of the game world right now, where like a lot of devs go to great extents to emulate McDonald's. Here's a bunch of garbage that is, well, I mean, edibility is kind of in question, but hey, it's cheap and it's addictive. Versus like, hey, let's go to I don't know, some fancy, mom and pop restaurant for a really good steak that we just can't get anywhere else. So kind of run with that.
Yeah, it's the short answer is that negative coverage just gets more views and earns more money. Period.
Mhm.
Right now, the personal answer to this is why I have the Indie Spotlight series. I have a whole series of videos where I find like really tiny indie games, and then I just like praise them for 10 or 15 minutes straight. Outward, Pray for the Gods. Think I'm working on one for Darkwood. I'm not sure, but I did Slay the Spire, Spellbreak, like a bunch of them. Because they're right. You know, the negative outside coverage of industry news, it gets overwhelming. There's a lot of people that do it. But it really is like for the same reason that when you go on a trip and you have a bad time, you're like 10 times more likely to leave a review than if you go on a trip and you have a good time and you're just like, oh, that was fun. And then you're done. That's why people just watch the negative coverage more. So that's generally speaking why so many YouTubers and games media and journalists and whatever cover it. But my personal answer is to try and insert as much as I can of like actual on the nose about games that I like, about games I enjoy, and intersperse that with the content as well.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, that's an approach we try to take as well. We try to focus on the positive as much as we can. I think I said earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes bad news are just bad news. Like it's reality. Sometimes people need to face it. Like there's a lot of because gaming today. I mean, you watch channels that talk around gaming stuff either because you play that game or you want to play that game or you're interested in that game. But ultimately, you're going to decide if you're going to pay or not. So if someone does actually give you all the negative stuff, but also gives the positive stuff, if there is any positive stuff, then it helps you decide in the end. But if you're only bombarded with positivity, but you don't pay attention to the negative stuff, to the bad stuff in the industry, then they can just continue to do what they want to do. Because
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility, like knowing the scope of the platform that I do have. If I say a game is really good, I have to be damn sure that it is, because if people are going to buy that game because I recommended it, it is going to happen. So if I recommend it, I have to be sure. Whereas if I say negative stuff about a game, they may still go buy it, but they're only going to do so typically if they've researched other sources, right? They've taken the time to gain more information. So me praising a game can make people waste money. Me shitting on a game can usually result in people being more informed about that very same game. So in the end, it's less risky for me. I don't know. I don't want to ever cause someone to spend $60 on a game and then turn around and be like, that YouTuber just made me waste the $60 that I could have had for this month that would have been really, really, good for me to have or fun or whatever. And I never want to be responsible for that. So that's why I trend towards, criticizing stuff, or at least saying like, look for yourself. There's more sources. Find other people other than me. If I say I hate this game, go find somebody that says they love it, and then juxtapose the two opinions on top of each other and see which one you agree with more.
Right. Exactly. I understand where you're coming from with feeling that responsibility when you're doing game reviews.
And that's a really solid way of putting the metaphor is like find somebody who's got something negative to say and something positive to say about it, because chances are your opinion is going to fall somewhere in between those two things typically, as a generic consumer, and that's a good thing to have that. I mean, it's a good way to approach everything, is to like have a little bit of balance on both sides and try to find the coherent path in the middle, as much as you can. Now sometimes, and 100%, the pathway veers to the left or to the right, extremely hard. And with what we've seen in gaming recently, we have a lot of this situation where it is pretty much a worst case scenario. Blizzard has been a worst case scenario now for like 2 years. Yeah, it's just like they absolutely dropped the ball on BFA. They absolutely dropped the ball on their whole entire Diablo franchise. They dropped the ball on their Warcraft franchise, and they dropped the ball. On everything. I mean, like Heroes of the Storm, it's gone now. Their whole esport arena, like everything that has to do with their esports, they screwed over so many people there on so many things, and now
I forgot about that. Heroes of the Storm really did just die unceremoniously.
Yeah, and we've got, just their lack of, like, keeping the community, you know, engaged with Overwatch. It's like it's just one step to another step to another step. They've just failed on every point. There's not the only highlight in that company in the last 2 years has been Classic, which is a 15-year-old version of a game that they have out now. And your 15-year-old version is higher, like, of course, there's some rose-colored glasses, factoring into this. But right now, there's more people playing that than they're playing the retail, like the current
Really?
live
That's
version of it.
wild. I didn't know it was still like that. I didn't even get to 60. I was supposed to get to 60 to raid with my guild, and I failed. But
Yeah.
like they were the ones that said you think you want it, but you don't.
Yeah.
Like they've gotten it wrong in every conceivable
and
way.
that idiot is now running the company. The
Great.
idiot,
That's fun. Good job, guy.
it's like, and it's just, I mentioned this, regulars know this too. These companies have people that fail upwards. Like the people that are in charge of some of the aspects at some of these big companies, they have gone from one failure to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And this has been like, this is a very common thing in the corporate world. I can't tell you how many times I see a company hire just the worst possible collection of people to run the company. It's like, how many companies have you bankrupted? 7. You're in. You're our new CFO. It's just like, we're gonna make everything work for this. It's just the way that it goes. And it's like, you're sitting there going, how, like, did they even read this guy's, like, background? And I'm convinced that they don't, because the amount of, like, everybody knows I'm in the information game, and the amount of times where it's like, we talked about this because of the whole Picard episode yesterday, but the ease of, like, walking into a place and just demanding to see something, the amount of times that works is hilarious. And the amount of times that somebody just walks in and says, "Hey, I'm your guy," and he's smooth and suave, and people, like, just don't even look at his background for whatever reason. They just don't do a background check. Oh, the guy's bankrupted 7 companies. Maybe he shouldn't be given the keys to the tower. I mean, just as a general thought, maybe I'm gonna do the hillbilly one again, because Time Bean loves it so much. It's like, hey Joe, maybe we shouldn't, like, give this person the keys to the kingdom. I mean, just logically, when you look at it, like, he's failed in everything. Shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, you stupid hillbilly. It's like,
They really,
okay.
For the
I mean,
same
it's
reason
good.
someone could sell sold the Golden Gate Bridge twice. Some random dude. Like, people, if you're confident, people will just do whatever you want, apparently.
I mean, it serves them good if they didn't do a
that
background
story.
check. Serves them good.
I remember hearing about that. The guy bought the Golden Gate Bridge twice.
Like, how do you, like, I kind of want to go try and sell that bridge now and be like, hey, you want to buy this bridge that I own? And, like, sell it one time, make a bunch of money. I mean, obviously, no, it's a crime. Don't do that, whatever, yada, yada. But, oh, man, you're right, dude. People believe, it's the same reason they can get away with marketing a lot of these AAA games, right? Okay, show this brilliant, wonderful cinematic trailer, and they're like, this is what you're going to play. And then everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to get it. Doesn't matter that 100 times before this, I've seen something identical, and then it wasn't the same thing when it released. But, oh, yeah, this time, yeah, maybe we should pay money up front. Okay.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, but that's just majority of people that play games don't really have any interest in searching the industry or seeing what this company does. I've been surprised how many people don't know anything about what EA does. Like, they think, like, okay, that's their game, they have this microtransaction thing, that's the thing, but they don't really go deeper into it to see, like, how damaging it is to the industry and, like, what other games can offer in a sense. Because the most selling, Call of Duty. Oh my god, you have so many games to play.
Isn't the last, like, 7 games out of the last 10 for the, like, most sold have been Call of Duty? 7 out of 10 of the past 10 games have been Call of Duty for the most sold. copies or
Yeah,
some shit. I don't know.
They're
It's
always
wild.
on the list. Always on
Even
the top.
Ghosts, man, that was the worst thing in the world. Call of Duty Ghosts made me, oh god, and that was on. I was on the list. It was like number 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah. And now they have this, and they already announced like the next 2020 Call of Duty game. I mean, not officially what's gonna be, but they said like, well, yeah, newsflash, it's coming.
Every
No,
year,
this is,
like
this is another sort of a window into the state of the industry. Yeah, you do have these franchises that are putting out a new iteration of their game every year, not really innovating on much. They're sports games especially.
yeah, the whole FIFA, Madden, stuff like
You know,
that. Yeah.
they update the rosters. Maybe like I don't know what else I don't play those games, but from what I understand, there's not a lot of innovation. I mean, obviously
No, they
the
don't even
rules
update on the
change.
stadium. The stickers on the stadium for FIFA. Oh god, I don't want to get this wrong because somebody's going to correct me. But the stickers on the stadium for FIFA 20 or FIFA 19 are like the year before. So they don't even update like it's
Wow.
a copy paste, and then they're like, okay, new players, and then like maybe some visuals here and there, maybe or some animations, but like not much.
Yeah. Basically
Now-
something which could be handled in an update, the player transfers and whatever.
Yeah, like a small patch, like a medium
Yeah.
patch at most. Yeah.
Now, it is true that the gaming industry seems to the majority of the money seems to come from the microtransactions, and so does that affect our ability to, in fact, impact change on the industry by voting with our wallets? Do you think voting with your wallet works? That's the advice that we often give on our channel. Vote with your wallet. Don't put money into things that that are to companies that are behaving in ways that you don't like, and do support the games. And we see people doing that even with when Dark turned down Epic exclusivity on principle. You had people buying that game who had no intention of playing it, but they just wanted to support the developer.
True. I think like
does it work,
voting
though?
with your wallet can work. It can work, but this is a really like defeatist perspective, honestly, and I'm sorry about that, but it doesn't work because there's so many situations where if you want to vote with your wallet against FIFA or against, the annualized releases or the microtransactions, the loot pocket, the loot packs, whatever they are, you just can't play a soccer game then. Right. So voting with your wallet is like a huge detriment to yourself because if you are a big fan of playing soccer games, you just can't do that because FIFA is the one. Right. So you can vote with your wallet, but you're depriving yourself significantly of something you may very much want. And a lot of people aren't going to do that. So it results in this kind of like self-hatred where they buy it every year. And I'm not trying to talk down on the FIFA community, but I know that a lot of them are unhappy with what they're purchasing, but they do it anyway because there's no alternative. Now, if there was like licensing alternatives and you could have a soccer game from a different studio and there was competition, then it would be a different story. Then you could really vote with your wallet. But right now it's kind of a binary choice. Either get the thing that you want and get it imperfectly, or you don't get anything that you want and you maybe you don't make a difference really because there's so many people that are going to go still get it.
Yeah, because at one time I mean PES was a huge thing in the past, and I think now PES lost all of the majority of licenses. EA took them all, and now like you can't even play the game with the name of the club. They have to change that because of the licensing, and because of this monopoly that EA has, they can do anything they want honestly with this.
Exactly.
That's the sad truth.
Let's look at
the monopoly stuff like really locks it down.
I definitely see where that is an issue in the sports game sector, because you do have these exclusive licenses with teams and player likenesses and things like that. What about outside of that? Can we look at it a little differently in sort of more of the core game sector? Like we saw this year or last year, I guess, Jedi Fallen Order did very well, and it looks like Respawn is going to be creating a sequel to that. But it looks like perhaps voting with your wallet in that case worked and might have gotten EA's attention. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think switching what you buy, like buying something and voting that way, like a positive affirmation, works better. Not buying something, I feel like, is a really weird way to vote with your wallet because you're cutting down on what you can enjoy and it doesn't seem to ever really do anything unless there's like mass refunds, maybe like the Warcraft 3 situation. But yeah, Jedi Fallen Order, it's really funny that they EA was like, no more single player games. Single player games are not popular and they're dead. And then Jedi Fallen Order, beat their expectations by 1 million or 2 million units? I don't know, like something a lot. So that's really funny to me. So voting in that capacity, voting in a positive confirmation by buying something that you do want to support that, I feel like, yeah, that can have an effect outside of the monopolized industries.
Yeah, I agree with him. Definitely, because EA, well, I mean, when you look at Anthem, when you look at all of that, that was a microtransaction filled mess, and people said like, no, we don't want that. You screwed us over. So they're losing. They're definitely losing. Like if they actually stick to microtransactions and those practices. So I'm guessing, like in some sense, there is some impact on the industry, but it also comes down to who do these games target? Because in a sense, if you look at Fortnite does have all of these things that are, I mean, my opinion about that game. But whatever, like you don't have to buy those things, but the game kind of forces you to buy skins and battle passes and just to show off with your friends and everything. So if you look at those things, usually they're bought by children and their parents. They don't know what they're buying. They're just buying skins. It's like they don't really care, honestly, that much. So I think for those kind of games, like microtransactions are going to be a huge thing, and they are going to spend a lot of money on it. But if you look at other games that don't really target younger population, and especially right now because people are getting educated through YouTube channels, through various sources on the internet on what is good and what is bad, I'm guessing it's gonna bite them in the butt one day.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it will. Absolutely. I keep dreaming like the next big release is going to be the one that like really shows a turning point, but the pattern is pretty established. I mean, maybe it's fluctuating here and there, but like the pattern of advertisement, hype, super hype, release, disappointment, it seems to be, I mean, it happens over and over and over.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be like a super pessimist here. I know that sounds like I'm coming across that way, but it does happen over and over. And that's why I'm actually a big fan of, so E3 is seemingly going down the tubes. It looks like E3 is falling apart as a convention and losing a lot of its steam. Like Sony's not going again. It looks like most things have their own press events and like do their own show at the same time in like different areas. So I would be happy if E3 just dissipated and didn't exist anymore. I think publishers and developers should communicate directly with their audience through live streams at whatever point they feel the info is ready, rather than coming together for this big convention and just like really like, oh, we have to hype our game more than they hype their game so that we can get the spotlight at the hype convention. And then it just becomes like this race to the top and people forget what's true and what's not and they stop caring. So a reduction in that kind of behavior would be good.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. E3 is a bit of a relic from the pre-live stream, pre-streaming video era. I mean, it's been going on for decades now, and then now when you have the opportunity with the advent of YouTube and live streams and things like that to communicate directly with your fan base and even receive direct support, through Patreon, things like that, or various crowdfunding kinds of services. I mean, it's a great opportunity for indie developers, but also, the larger developers, they can reach their audiences directly. It's you don't necessarily need to go through these major conventions. Now I think they have,
right?
Sorry?
It was designed for E3 was designed for print journalism, I think, right? So they would bring all the journalists in, and then they would, or maybe it wasn't just print, but like it was designed to bring in a very small number of journalists who would then get access to insider information and nobody in the public would, and then they could report on it. That was like originally the format. And now they're trying to make it public, right? I don't know how many years it's been public access or like gamer passes or whatever. But as far as I know, it's going badly. Like PAX goes really well because they've done it so many years, but E3 is struggling with that. They don't know how to handle it. There's too many people. They had the whole doxing thing for like 2 years now, where all the private info got released. So
and
I think conventions are reshaping right now.
It is so elitist too, as we discovered firsthand when a couple of years ago when we partnered with you to do some coverage for E3. I believe it was 2017 or 2018?
I think it was 18, yeah.
And you got there and were told well, you can't film this. You don't have the right kind of pass, and it was ridiculous.
Mhm.
It was absurd.
You know what was fucked up too? Like the worst thing that made me so mad. I had a pass that was like we talked about this extensively. You guys already know this. I had a pass that was above the one for filming, right? Above the media pass. I had a business pass, which technically by their site was above the media pass. But if you didn't have specifically a media pass, then you couldn't film. And then they gave me the whole runaround because I tried to convert to a media pass, and they said you can only convert if you represent, I think it was 100,000 subscribers or more. And at the time, I think I was like 78,000 or something. So I was like 22,000 off. But then in total, because we had the business cards and everything, we were representing a group of people that was well over 100,000 subscribers. And they were like, no, it has to be an individual channel that's over 100,000. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
which is something that they changed recently, because this used to be a thing that the magazine companies would do. So all of the magazine companies would show up at these events, and they would cite, oh well, we have this magazine, this magazine, this magazine. It's the same magazine. It's just
Yeah.
going out to like, different. It's a different variation of it, and the magazine industry was like complete garbage, years ago too, because what you ended up having is and the same thing is done now with clicks and information sites and all of these websites where it's like, you won't believe what happened, check out this 45-page website that you have to hit next on to find out the real story, and it's like you're watching 270,000 ads by the time you get to the end of the article, and it's just kind of like this clickbaity thing going on. It used to be that way with the magazines, where the magazines would sell 100,000 units to another company that produced other magazines, and then that company would buy 100,000 of somebody else's magazine, and they would just send their magazines to the paper recycling so that they could recycle the paper, reprint the paper, and then they could walk into a convention or to a sales pitch and say, yes, we sell 400,000 copies of our magazine every single month.
that's wild.
And people don't realize that 50% of that was just, and again, this falls into one of the reasons why they started doing this is because the government said, hey, you have to do recycling. You have to try and get a certain percentage of your magazines to be recycled. So instead of recycling, trying to encourage people to recycle the 1/3 of the 300,000 copies that they sent out, they just printed 100,000 more copies, sold it to another company who then recycled it directly and signed off on a thing saying that they recycled that, and suddenly 25% of your magazines are now being recycled. Well, now you've hit your quota. It's a completely fake system that has absolutely no bearing on reality, but that's just how it works
That's
in the
wild.
system, and it's absolutely mind-boggling. Like,
So yeah, my experience with E3 was that it's extremely elitist,
mhm.
much like you guys, and I don't see a point for it as a convention anymore. And it's
From a
weird
journalism
because some people I respect are like, oh, like I'm so sad to see E3. Like people I really truly respect are saying how sad they are and how relevant it is and how it needs to stay. And I'm like, there's a total disconnect for me between that. Like I cannot understand that perspective at all.
I would agree from a news media perspective for sure. Now there may still be value in it as far as networking within the industry. I have heard that perspective before from game developers, but
a different story. Like the first question, like anytime I would talk to anyone about streaming or YouTube, the very first question out of their mouths, like 90% of the time, was how many viewers do you get, or how many subscribers do you get? Which, I mean, it's valid, but at the same time, if you said, like one time I answered, this was at PAX, it wasn't at E3, but the same kind of atmosphere is there. I answered like, I don't know, if I turned on Twitch, probably like 10 or 20. Like, no, I haven't streamed in a long time. At the peak, I had 8,000 at one point, right? But that's not what I would average. So I said like 10 or 20, and then they turned around and walked away before I was done finishing the sentence. I was like, what the, like you measuring people purely by their analytics is just so wrong, because there's so much value in a lot of channels and people and personalities that isn't quantified by those analytics. So to me, E3 was just so based on like, how big is your channel? How much can I get from you? How much can you get from me? And it's like, no, there's more to it, man. There's more to it. Gaming's a social thing. Like it's a group of people. Like there's much more to it than that, but that's really all that they cared about.
My God.
Okay, we are approaching the 2-hour mark. I guess it's about time to get into final thoughts. It's been a great discussion today. I've really appreciated having both of you on, Upper Echelon and Last Known. Really appreciate your perspectives on a variety of things. Any final words, topics, any thoughts we haven't covered yet that you want to share?
Going back to Cyberpunk, I'm always a fan of deflating hype, but at the same time, I don't want to subtract from a game. I'm looking forward to learning more about it each and every day. So I don't ever want to make it seem like I'm trying to tell people you better not be excited, but I'm just reasonable expectations, in the back of your mind, always have that skeptical voice. That's kind of all I would want to preach, just because it's happened so many times in the past.
I think that's very fair. Yeah, I think that's very fair. To have a reasonable amount of hype, and also to have hype, based on actual info and not just sort of really inflated expectations.
Like they've given us 48 minutes of gameplay, like huge amounts of gameplay. So seeing that gameplay and being excited by that, that's totally reasonable. You're seeing something play out. I mean, maybe it's going to look slightly visually different, but I mean, I can't imagine core mechanics changing. So yeah, based like real info, excited for real info. Yeah. 100% go for it. It's just the speculative, like one person I know was talking about like, oh, I bet you can have like simulator stuff or whatever. And I think it was mentioned in that article as well. Like, then they're like, no, we don't have simulator stuff. Or if the guy even said that, but like they're, thinking that you can do anything in the world in this expansive sandbox is like, hold off until you see actual gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not going to be, it's not going to be, it's going to be a great game. It's not going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
Second coming.
It's not going to cure cancer. It's not going to. Yeah, it's still at the end of the day, it's still a video game. It will have limitations to what it can do, to what you can experience in it, but it should deliver a pretty good story and an awesome fun experience for sure.
But they're pushing something. Yeah. They're pushing the genre forward with the stuff you can do in the game, in a sense, with some of the new features. So I'm glad that they're doing it.
They are. I think. Yeah.
Like, especially when you consider the scope of the city and everything, like what's gonna be inside the city, from just a technical standpoint, that's awesome just to have to, move forward the technology of video games, because that's gonna be good for us. Now, again, hopefully in the end, when it does comes out, hopefully it's all going to be in place and well optimized. But just from a technical standpoint, it's great. And I believe that the industry in general, the gaming industry, in the next 5 years, it's going to change a lot, especially with the increase of VR. VR is definitely going to be the next big thing. It certainly has all the requirements for it now that we see like Valve doing Half-Life in VR.
Yeah,
so they're
true.
pushing.
That's a big release.
Yeah. They're pushing that. So I'm guessing like some of the studios that right now are operating, the bigger ones might go down, maybe the smaller ones rise. I think it's a normal cycle of the industry in general. You either adapt or you go away.
And we do have a game here that I believe is going to push the limits of the current generation of gaming hardware. So I guess it's no surprise that optimization is taking some time. But
I think it's probably, I mean, again, it's probably going to be not poorly optimized, but the best experience I think is going to be on next gen hardware for a game like Cyberpunk, just because the sheer scope of the city, like you were saying, it's you're going to need more, or like a high-end gaming PC. I don't picture this as being one of those games where, somebody with a 6-year-old gaming laptop is going to be able to log in and have a great experience. And that's the type of reasonable expectations, don't expect the world from it. Don't expect like, oh, my MacBook Air can run this. Like, no, you can't. It's not going to happen.
No, exactly.
That's true.
So besides Cyberpunk, what are you most excited for, Chris, for 2020 in gaming?
Ooh, that's a good question. What am I most excited for? I'm trying to think of like other big releases or something.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of catching you off guard here with the question.
Path of Exile 2, I think, would be the number one thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Excellent.
Yeah, definitely. I followed that for a long time. I try to do a review every new league. I've been playing it. I don't know how many thousand hours I have now, but like it's Path of Exile 2, huge deal for me.
Mm-hmm. We've got some answers coming in from the chat.
Subverse, yeah.
Unapologetically
Subverse. I want to see what they do with that.
Subverse and Tales of Arise, says Tanad. Maja J says Dying Light 2. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Resident Evil 3 also. The remake.
That's right, yeah.
That's going to be interesting.
Quick answer to Crazy Joy. Yes, they're the game really has expanded, like, from what they were originally going to do. They got so much money, they got so much positive feedback, and they've had a really just a good stream of success in developing the game. Things are looking really good. A bunch of their voice talent was just announced. It is very, very cool, very very awesome. Some people that are pretty cool to see. And yeah, so far as we know, Tim Pool is not going to be involved.
Oh yeah.
That was very.
I don't know. Maybe
funny.
If he was smart, he would have like said, "Okay, let's bury the hatchet." But then again, I mean, Flow is one of those companies where it's like, it's an interesting company. You must be prepared before you deal with them. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, I guess we will wrap the show up there. It's been a great conversation today. Appreciate you guys being on the show. As I said, Upper Echelon Gamers and LastKnownMeal. You can check them out at those exact channels, Upper Echelon Gamers and LastKnownMeal. I will add their channel links to the description right away here. I neglected to do that before going live, but I will do that. So definitely check out those channels. Also, shout out to LastKnownMeal, the Neon Arcade, who was not able to be with us and was planning to, but I'm guessing he's not feeling well, so feel better. And don't forget, everybody, you can tune into the Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast, which takes place every Sunday, and it rotates between 4 channels. Our channel, LastKnownMeal's, the Neon Arcade, and the Mad Queen Show. And, gentlemen, which channel is it on tomorrow?
Mine.
All right. So check out LastKnownMeal's channel for the Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast tomorrow. It's always a good time. We thank you, everybody, for the great conversation in the live chat. Thank you for supporting this show by listening live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave. Really appreciate it. It likes it rough, and it shows YouTube that you appreciate this content. We also appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, the notification bell. Leave comments below if you're listening after the fact. All of that is, not only does it help our content with the algorithms and whatnot, but we like seeing the feedback. We like seeing what you think about our content so that we can continue to improve and make it better. So thank you very much for everybody who does that. I also want to shout out our Patreon supporters and channel members who help make this content possible. Our big damn heroes over on Patreon, Josh, Robin, and our 2 anonymous supporters there. Thank you so very much. And our channel members, Jason Cropper, Mr. Pazernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, and Terror K. Thank you all very much for your support. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or any other platforms that this podcast goes to, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget, you can join the live show on Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. See the Discord server for exact times and schedules. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash, on behalf of Cyb, and Upper Echelon Gamers, and LastKnownMeal. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.